Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Shane Jones.
Sir, that was the sacrificial lamb to John Banks, otherwise known as Mr. Goldsmith, who I think is now the chair of our FEC committee. And, sir, if that speech is reflective of how that committee is run, I can see why Winston found it far more interesting to talk about Peter Dunn. Sir, we need a far greater and more spirited delivery from the putative minister if he wants to follow the track of other former very important, formidable personalities who have chaired that FEC committee. Yeah, but I have to ask myself, sir, why recently, sir, why recently was the senior whip of the National Party not promoted rather than going for the sitting member from Rotorua? I think, sir, that party needs to address why they continually pass over talent, such as the member from the Taupo area. Unfortunately, sir, as we say in Māori, put to the side. Not quite to pasture, that's for the pompadour down there on that side of the house. So let me come back to this budget. Number one, if there's an area, sir, where the budget fails miserably, it's on jobs. And, sir, that failure is shared evenly on that side of the House, although the Minister of Māori Affairs, we had him at the Select Committee today, sir, I think he is particularly responsible for failing to advocate and influence the actual thinking and prioritisation, sir, amongst that side of the House, because if there's an area where unemployment stinks, it's amongst the young Pacifica and Māori. So, and it's so bad that the recent OECD report, not that I'm sort of often taken to reading such dry narratives about the New Zealand economy, but where I find, sir, it agrees with my thinking, of course it deserves to be amplified. And so they go on to say that the transition from school to work, notably amongst ethnic minorities, is woeful. And, sir, it is actually hindering the development of the country's human capital. I mean, why are they going to go and bring 30,000 Filipinos into New Zealand and leave thousands of young Pacifica and Māori decaying on the unemployment scrap heap? And the Minister of Māori Affairs, sir, boasts as a consequence of a $2 million initiative that he's going to address that wasted talent amongst the tangata whenua, yet, sir, this government is preparing to manipulate immigration laws, bring in swathes of overseas workers at a time when our own people, sir, need to be incentivised, and I say in my area of the North, forced to go into training, sir, and take up those jobs. But no, it's so much easier, sir, to import labour with all those challenges, sir, and watch our homegrown talent, sir, homegrown talent lost. So there's nothing in the budget that deals with these intractable issues. But what is in the budget, sir? And on this side of the House, I join my colleague Mr Parker saying there is definitely a case for being very judicious about maintaining current levels of expenditure and, sir, ensuring that until such time our export markets flourish to our benefit, we need to be very judicious about tracking expenditure going forward. So there's no sort of inordinate disagreement there between what the government's seeking to do to ensure that our creditors continue to see us as a safe bet. But, sir, where this government has failed in that regard, it's got all of its priorities wrong. Totally wrong. Far too much energy, far too many trophies being hunted from a selected, narrow cast of economic titans, sir, not the least of which is those in Auckland in the casino industry. Now, sir, that's been traversed, and we accept that the contract is probably going to be put in place. Legislation, as I understand, is going to wend its way through the House, but that's not going to change the fact, sir, that it's caused a great deal of stink. And I hope that comes to rest on the people responsible for that, not the least of which is Mr Joyce and Mr John Key. Sir, today we witness an extraordinary event, Labour policy yet again being pinched by the current government as they move forward, sir, to I'd like to see if they're going to take the money out of the Mighty River sale proceeds to fund to fund the rail loop. I should imagine that's the only place that they're going to get the capital. So what they're going to do is sort of cause New Zealanders to, in diminishing number I might say, to buy the SOEs, because the majority of it will drift overseas, and then use that dough to fund Labour Party policy. Labour Party policy, as the former transport spokesman, who actually had a considerable bit to do with the construction of that part of the manifesto, very pithy and lucid, clearly identified the way to unlock productivity, sir. Unlock productivity, modesty. One way to unlock productivity, sir, is to unclog the roads and ensure that we have a modern, efficient, future-proof transportation system in Auckland. Now, it's not for me to congratulate anyone, but it's for me to acknowledge on this side of the House and amongst our confreres, politically speaking, up there in Auckland, there's been a long and arduous task which we've followed up, etc. So I'm only disappointed that that level of sophistication hasn't been brought to the Wairoa-Gisborne rail link. No, if you're in the region, sir, you starve under this government. If you're in the regions, they don't care about taking a strong facilitative approach with the forestry sector. Sir, if you're in the north, tourism is withering as a consequence of a very niggardly approach being taken, sir, to meeting the costs of boosting tourism in the north. I've been told by tourism operators up there, sir, they receive in that part of the country a miserly sum of money. It's given, sir, where the National Party believe they have their stronger friends. Sir, not only do we have a situation where rail, sir, not only do we have a situation where rail's been starved, but we've got this half-baked notion that somehow South Island's productivity is going to grow by building a new port and destroying Picton and Blenheim in the process. Now, so I've yet to hear how Jerry Brownlee hopes, in the context of a broader budget debate, sir, to fund this new port. A port that will be inordinately expensive, a huge resource management process, and why, sir, he would want to devastate two very pleasant communities, Picton and Blenheim, in the process. And I can only imagine, sir, he imagines he's going to attract international capital to underwrite the costs. If that is the case, then fess up about it. Or he's going to further raid the Transport Fund for another pet project. Sir, earlier we heard from Mr Goldsmith that in theory saving was fine, but in actual fact it would never happen because Labour proposes to pursue a capital gains tax which will deflate the value of housing. No, sir. The average household with one house seeking to create a home for mum, for the kids, for the whānau, this policy, sir, that he fears is not designed to cause those people to find themselves in Struggler's Gully. This policy is designed to hit the speculators and those as a consequence of no capital gains tax, as a consequence of a loosening of financial lending from our major banks for residential purposes, has driven the cost of housing beyond the pale. Sir, it is our proposal that nothing in this budget is actually going to influence the cost of housing in Auckland. All it's going to do is simplify the process for a narrow range of landowners who have had the gift, as a consequence of no capital gains tax, of holding land in certain areas of Auckland, and, sir, the value of that property will explode. But, sir, the benefits associated with the provision of this housing, they won't be shared equally. They will once again fall to a narrow caste, and so good on them for being investors, but don't imagine perpetually you're going to be able to get away without having to meet your obligation through paying a proportion of your wealth by dint of capital back to the state. Now, sir, we heard today that the government has yet to finalise, sir, a deal not to do with rail loops, etc., but to deal with housing in Auckland. I've got absolute confidence, sir, that that's going to end in tears. There is nothing that this budget proposes, sir, that is going to simplify the process for your average Kiwi to get themselves into a home, because there's nothing happening in the regions that would cause investment to move out of our largest city, which is turning into a form of Buenos Aires, and actually, sir, support the Whangareis, support the New Plymouths, support, sir, the Gisbornes, the Rotoruas, which is why, sir, as our policies roll out in that particular area, more of them will come home to the whare rōpūreipa. Kia ora tātou katoa.
We come to some 5-minute calls to your level.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.